Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Quarantine Stories. Last week, the county in Kansas that we live in recorded its first COVID-19 death. The newscast described the incident as a woman in her 70s, an elderly woman in her 70s. They didn't give a name. And I found that to be a little disturbing because I'm the same age and I really never thought of myself as being elderly. So I had to look up the definition of elderly, and apparently it's anyone over the age of 65. Well, I have to say that I don't feel elderly. In fact, since I've retired, I feel like I have a new lease on life. There's so much I have to do, so much I want to do, so many projects that I want to accomplish. And I hope those of you who are in my age group, in my elderly age group, I hope you have those same feelings, those same urges to accomplish more before it's your time. I have a quarantine quote for today that goes along with that. Ironically, it was in the newspaper, our local newspaper, at the same week of this first COVID-19 death. I love what they have to say. This was on their editorial page. The elderly are the soul of our nation. They carry our memories and conscience, understanding gathered by decades of living. This was in an editorial in the March 29th issue of the Topeka Capital Journal. And here's another quarantine quote. Every time an old person dies, it's like a library burning down. And that quote is from Alex Haley. What I'd like to talk to you about today is about the urgency of gathering the stories of the elderly, whether it's us or whether it's a loved one, a relative, gathering those stories before they're lost for all time. When I started Personal Chapters, I collaborated with a good friend, Sherry Batrick. She's actually my joint venture partner, and I hope that she's going to be joining us as soon as the quarantines and stay-at-home orders are all gone. I hope she'll be joining us in some of these video series. But Sherry and I developed a series of writing prompts that make it easy to capture the stories, our own stories or those of our loved ones. It's divided into 5 different chapters, starting with something we call the essentials. The essentials cover just the bare facts of a person's life, and it's designed to result in an obituary, one that can be written long before it's needed. And the other dividers in that writing prompt system include growing up, of course, and then there's a section called Showing Up, which is about adulthood. Another section is called Lighting Up, which is about your spiritual principles and the guiding principles of your life. And finally, we end with something called Footprints. And the Footprints section is basically a guide to an index to the personal artifacts of your life, from your estate planning papers to heirlooms that you want to make sure their stories are preserved and who they should go to the important documents of your life, even photographs, labeled photographs, by the way. So that's our writing prompt system. There are peel-off labels that have questions on them that allow you to stick the label on a piece of paper and answer the question. And that way we get around the excuse that people have of not being able to do this project because they're not writers. Well, you don't have to be a writer. All you have to be able to do is to answer questions, and you can answer them on video, you can answer them on an audio tape. or you can actually write them down or type them into a computer. So the excuse of not being a writer should not stop you from capturing either your story or the story of a loved one. And you certainly don't have to be uh, intimidated by the fact that you may be quote unquote elderly, like I am. So let's get it in our heads that it's time to start to gather these stories. You may be one of those who got tired of hearing the stories your grandparents told, for example. Even I've heard my husband's stories and jokes many times, and sometimes I walk out of the room because I don't want to hear them again. But then someday I'm going to wish that I had recorded those. In fact, I am recording his stories. So uh, think about your own attitudes toward your personal history or that of a loved one and see if it might be time to alter those. We're going to help you with that. We're going to give you a very guided, hold your hand kind of approach to making this an easy process. So we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.